So today I'm going to begin by discussing Werner and the subsequent Werner Kapelle built in Bacharach, then discuss broader European anti-Semitism, and finally wrap up with the story of modern-day conflict resolution between social groups in much more favorable ways. So to begin, in 1287, with Werner von Oberwesel's death, the populace of Bacharach and the Middle Rhine rose up in pogroms, murdering over 40 Jews, and they created superstitious fables that Werner had been murdered for instance, blood to make matzah bread, or for the purpose of host desecration, desecration of the Eucharist in Catholic ceremonies. And so this religious-based pogrom spread from the Middle Rhine region, Bacharach, Oberwesel, to the Moselle River and the Lower Rhine. It was really a problem for the Jews in Germany and for German culture. But Werner's death falls into a broader context of anti-Semitism in Europe, notably Central and Northern Europe. A major early medieval phase of anti-Semitism began with the blood libel, the idea that Jews used Christians' blood to make matzah for Passover. It originated in Norwich in England in 1140 when a crazed monk and a superstitious priest concocted the idea that a Christian child had been murdered for such a blood libel. Because the Christians had long considered Jews an alien people, it was very easy for both educated and completely ignorant, illiterate medieval Christians to take these superstitious myths to heart and believe that the Jews had in fact committed such evil acts. And so began a medieval phase of religious discrimination against the Jews. This superstitious phase continued throughout the Middle Ages, including during the Black Death. Because religious discrimination led to medieval and late Roman laws that had outlawed the Jews from many normal aspects of Christian medieval life, marrying Christians, owning property, and so on, Jews were forced to adopt different economic tactics than the medieval Christian populace at large. They were among the early groups to get into mercantile society. They were notably usurers because Christians were not allowed to charge interest to lend money. And because of that, Christians were not lending money because there was nothing in it for them. So Jews began to fund capital expenditures in the dawn of a mercantile economy. Because of that, the Christians quickly switched from a religious basis of discrimination to an economic basis. So the Christians put the Jews in a bit of a bind, whereby the Jews were both forced into this position of money lending, but also hated and despised for being in the very position that they were forced into. However, this economic discrimination, while prevalent in later centuries, eventually gave way to a racial and ethnic discrimination. That is because in the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, the Jews were ever more seen as the foreign group as opposed to a certain religious or economic group. With the rise of nationalism and social Darwinism, it was easy to scapegoat Jews as an enemy within a state so that the so-called normal members of that state would rally in a pro-national attitude. Once the Jews had been recognized as aliens, the past became a decisive factor in future acts of discrimination. But on the other hand, each situation determined the specific reason for such anti-Semitism. For instance, religion was the early reason because Christians viewed at first Jews as the people responsible for the murder of Christ. But then again, in the mercantile era, the past made it easy to scapegoat the Jews, but the reason had changed. It was the usury and the money lending. And finally, in the age of nationalism, while usury was still a factor in the discrimination, Jews were chosen for discrimination because of national outlooks. In this way, the specific historical situation and the context in which social groups view each other determined the outcome of social conflicts between Jews and Christians. However, today, in modern Germany, there's an example of a social conflict between two different groups being resolved in a much more favorable and much a very similar situationally dependent way. After the unspeakable acts of the Holocaust, Germans have been trying to establish themselves as a Western, civilized nation since the Basic Law in the post-war era. And so today, with rising tension between Arab and Turkish immigrants and native-born German teens, the government and donors from across the Bonn metropolitan societal spectrum have instituted a new program that creates communal ties and friendship between these disparate groups. With youth culture the way it is, these donors and the government decided that the best solution is to bring the youth together with an RV that comes with beverages and internet access so that these young people can come together in a neutral environment that is really just a place they might want to hang out anyway. But at the same time, almost subconsciously, these two groups of people are being brought together in friendship. In this way, a history of persecution in one context, anti-Semitism, has influenced today a new conflict between two different groups, mostly Muslim Arabs and mostly Christian native-born Germans.